This is Dateline News and Conversation. My guest tonight is my good friend Blaž Kaučić from Slovenia. Blaž, welcome to the show.
Hello again, Regis, after a while.
Yeah, but it's good to see you always. So,
Yeah.
I'd like to know you're in Slovenia, and probably a lot of people can't even find that on the map. But tell me what life is like in Slovenia today. Uh, civil life, cultural life, political life, and economic life. Because I know that in many parts of Europe and Eastern Europe, the economy is not good. They're beating the drums of war. There's a lot of controversy over the unelected EU officials, but what's it like in your country?
Well, as you said, that some people may find it difficult to find Slovenia on a map. It's relatively very easy. Go to a map, look for Vienna, Austria. This is generally known. Look for Venice, Italy, and draw a direct line between Vienna and Venice, and you will more or less go through capital of Slovenia, which is Ljubljana. So Slovenia is in a triangle between Austria and Italy, bordering also on Hungary, and the south, east, bordering with Croatia. Slovenia, in one sense, is just another member state of European Union, which means a subordinated entity without sovereignty, with government, academia, and NGOs working for the global powers against the people. We have our brand of fascists. We have Catholic Church as a dominating soft power. We have our comprador caste. We have our corruption. On the other hand, Slovenia is one of the pockets of the islands where the worst atrocities of the world order are not taking place yet, or not so graphically as in Ukraine, Palestine, Syria, and elsewhere. Things are not so radicalized even as with French riots or anti-digital ID petitions in United Kingdom. When we discussed a bit recently, Regis, how is life in Crimea and life in Slovenia from an ordinary person perspective, I have mentioned tennis as one of the things one can enjoy here in Slovenia. When sitting in a nice bar, in a well-maintained hall, sipping tea or beer, it is hard, unproductive for me to explain to people I talk to that our society is headed towards disaster. Roads are being built here, bridges reconstructed, many roundabouts, small and medium-sized manufacturing firms are overbooked with orders, highways are full of personal and commercial traffic, sport gladiators are winning, concerts and festivals of all sorts are thriving. One of my tennis partners is some 20 years younger, successful sales manager in Slovenian branch of Croatia-based corporation, mainly exporting local brands of food products. They are very successful, selling all over the world. My friend works and travels a lot. If he wants to stay on top, he has to devote most of his time and energy to work. He did read my book and he asks me questions, but he will not devote 1% of his energy towards investing in defending his long-term prospects for a good life. Similar, my grandson, who just graduated in biochemistry and continues to study physics at master's level, is probably my best informed and investigative interlocutor of all the people I discuss things with. But he also remains silent and careful what he talks about and with whom. Slovenian politics these days are overwhelmed with the prime minister getting married. First prime minister who got married during his term of office. What a spectacle. His spouse seems to be one example of Stepford wives coming out everywhere these days. Erika Kirk, Ursula von der Leyen, Melania, Caroline. In Slovenia, we have another one of Stepford wives married to American, both aggressively promoting Agenda 2030. He, the American guy, controls Slovenian medical system. She, the lady, controls the legislative. Yesterday, Agenda 2030 was commented on as conspiracy theory. Today, it is officially promoted as the only way forward by the globalists and by the so-called alternative. The terms, which is collective West, global South, which we hear all the time, are some of the main very misleading terms usually used. In this sense, European Union is supposed to be part of collective West. But European Union is nothing more than a burlesque performed by clown puppets like von der Leyen, Rutte, Macron, Merz, Meloni, Kallas. So this is where Slovenia is today in short.
Wow. I want to ask you a couple of questions. You mentioned several women who have risen to very powerful and influential positions in your country and across the EU. Blush, where do they come from? How do they get there?
Well, I think now when I look back, 5 years of Corona, World War, COVID-19, World War, whatever you want to call it, and I look further 10 years back, I see that during the last 15 years, there has been a systematic preparation of general global coordination to install absolutely disciplined people on all top positions in politics, in business, in academia. It also includes women. And I'm generally promoter of more women on higher places. I like the idea, but I don't think we should apply the equality of genders criteria in this way. It's important the performance of people. So all these women have been systematically groomed, some of them for top positions, some of them to control important personalities like the one global story we are all very much engaged in today. This is the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the role of Erika Kirk, his widow. So this is actually analyzing this story gives answers to a lot of questions. It's a big step forward in disclosing how the system operates.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised you mentioned Charlie Kirk and how that terrible event has attracted so much attention. Can you expound a little bit more on how you see this event, the assassination, incredible high-profile public assassination? How do you see it?
I must admit that as most of the people I listen to on the internet and who are political commentators, so the same way, I did not even notice Charlie Kirk before the assassination. But then when you look back and analyze the history, you see that he was actually one of the main and most promising influencers uh, and actually very important branch of power of Donald Trump and the powers behind Donald Trump. So he was a conservative politician, very, very influential within young generations. And I think that is by the people who are also friends of your show. I think that we can have a very clear picture on his role. What got my attention recently was the analysis of the letter Charlie Kirk wrote in May to Prime Minister Netanyahu. And this letter, analysis of this letter, discloses that Charlie Kirk was actually not turning against Israel or against Netanyahu. He was trying to consult, to advise Netanyahu how to improve the communication strategy, how to improve the narratives, how to create more powerful international communication. So it was Charlie Kirk was by no means turning away from the line he has been working on for a longer period of time. He was groomed this way. Yes, he did open some unpleasant questions, but more in the way of how should he explain some things to the students because he was going around and discussing things with young people, and he was bombarded with more and more and better formulated questions regarding genocide in Gaza, regarding the role of Israel, regarding the Israel first or United States first. So he was trying to find a way how to be more successful in this way, but unintentionally he touched some very delicate questions, and it was obviously a step too much. And we have seen a lot of cases like this where apparatchiks of the globalist powers get eliminated one way or another when they cross some lines. So this tragic event, which is on the human level, a terrible thing, and it hurts, it breaks our hearts to look at the pictures of this poor young man, how he was brutally assassinated. But the political role of Charlie Kirk was a very negative one, and his main orientation was for a long time. He was a young person, but still, most of his life he was promoting the so-called Judeo-Christian values, and we can like Donald Trump is, or like Netanyahu is, or Ursula von der Leyen. All these persons often speak about the so-called Judeo-Christian values as the basis of our modern civilization. And we can maybe later on go a little bit more into these values questions, but just as a direct answer to your question regarding Charlie Kirk.
I want to pursue this a little bit further, Blush. It's caused a great deal of controversy in this country. It's an event that further polarized people in this country. But I want your thoughts, and if you can express your own thoughts and maybe what your media what kind of narrative they're presenting to the people. Do you think it was a psychological operation? There are many people here that believe that uh, the CIA had to be behind it, Israel had to be behind it, and the purpose was to warn anybody who would step out of line and divert too far from the official narrative, and also to instill fear in the population. I mean, such an act of violence uh, covered live on television and then repeated over and over and over again was just incredibly horrific. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. Well, there are many books written on the subjects and many good analysis. I would just like to draw your attention on one of the sources, which I think is obligatory reading for anybody who would like to systematically think about answering the questions you have just posed. This is a book written by Paul Williams titled Operation Gladio: Unholy Alliance Between the Vatican, the CIA, and the Mafia. So the message of this book is that after the Second World War, cooperation emerged between these global forces, which then soon culminated in assassination of President Kennedy in 9/11, in many events which are less publicized and less known, but this is a clear trajectory of events which show that the hidden powers behind, I give them the name the General Global Coordination, because it's above all the institutions, nation states, and global institutions we see and we can identify. There is a coordinating power behind. And yeah, this power performs projects like genocides, which now this is the genocide in Gaza is maybe the most graphic one, and it's online, and it's terrible and it's heartbreaking. But the terrible genocides were happening during the last 500 years very intensively, from Belgians in Congo to American genocide in Korea after Second World War. And you have covered some of these questions in your documentary, Regis, to Philippines, South America, many states, then Syria, recent years. And so this is actually the product of the forces behind the visible forces we can all identify and see. So if you ask a psychological war, yeah, definitely, but I would call it this psychological war is part of the hybrid war, which comprises also, well, psychological level, kinetic level, like drones and tanks and missiles, chemical weapons. So all these levels of war against the population of the world are present. And this assassination of Charlie Kirk was one of the was demonstrating the power of the deep state to perform anything, to assassinate anybody who steps out of the line. You see also now a lot of media personnel, the journalists getting harassed at the airports. Hundreds of reporters were killed in Palestine, just for instance. So terrible events are happening, and yes, this is demonstrating do not resist.
Yeah. Uh, you mentioned a number of these current events. Uh, if you connect the dots, uh, you can discover that they're not isolated incidents. They all seem to be, uh, well, interconnected, and um, it's hard to see the dark forces and the hands behind it. Would you agree?
Well, it's very painful to see. We have all the necessary information, but a lot of our colleagues, when this have a lot of knowledge uh, of these subjects, but most of them then fall in one or another rabbit hole and go very deep in some mystical questions and isolated problems. Like some see all the problems in Jews, some see problems in capitalists, uh, some see problems in socialists and communists, and so on. And the global general global coordination is happy to see so many different opinions being floated around. And the solution would be to put these arguments together within the national defense and liberation programs. And we don't see that. Intellectuals of the world, yes, they have a lot of knowledge. There are institutes, there are books, conferences, but nobody efficiently formulates a clear analysis of what is really going on and how to organize for defense and liberation. And we come to the question, should we, the people of individual national states, organize for defense? Yes or no? Do we have some enemies or no? We have no enemies, everything is fine, or not?
Yeah, well, the strategy has always been to divide and conquer. They've got
Exactly.
they've got all of us arguing about everything. And now I know in the United States, uh, it's become uh, hateful. It's become violent. I mean, you look at the United States Congress, the Republicans and the
Yes.
Democrats condemning each other, comparing them each other to the worst tyrants and fascists, and they curse at each other. I mean, I've never seen this before in the government of the United States. And then when you look at society in America, people are divided over everything. They're divided over religion, they're divided over race, they're divided over political issues, any number of political issues, they're divided. The country is divided over Donald Trump. Uh, and so they keep us, well, I say us, the people in the United States, fighting against each other so that they really can't come together, as you were implying, as an independent sovereign country to come together and focus on what we have in common, but also what is happening to us. I think that's what you're getting at. Now, I wanted to come back to something, and it's related to everything we're talking about. Did I misunderstand you saying that Slovenia, in spite of how everything looks, the economy, the culture, um, what's going on in the country politically, did you say that it's headed towards disaster, or did I misunderstand that?
No, well, toward disaster, we as a human race are headed toward disaster, and Slovenia is just part of it. Now, where does Slovenia stand in the relation to European Union and Ukraine? Let's maybe delve into these questions a little bit more. Now, once about the identity of Europe. Everybody speaks about European Union and Europe and European values and so on. Well, the identity of Europe was connected uh, during the last decades with peace, with harmonically working society, with technological progress, with tolerance, with welfare, with environment protection. It is all gone. Even Putin said this recently in Valdai, adding that this assessment that everything is gone was made by what he called true European intellectuals. The Europe we all loved is no longer there. Criminals on the top speak of Judeo-Christian values as the basic foundation of modern Europe. Hardly anybody thinks deeper what the term Judeo-Christian values really means. Jewish theologians are publicly declaring Judeo-Christian values as a contradiction in terms. Nonsense. So where does the term really come from? The term was intensively launched by none other than George Orwell in 1939. Orwell, one of the architects of the New World Order. So, just like with Agenda 2030 or 17 Sustainability Development Goals, we are dealing here with nicely sounding terms used to masquerade systemic poisoning, robbing, and killing of people. When it comes to Slovenia and Ukraine, the powers that be fully comply with the orders from Brussels and NATO. People here have historically positive attitude towards Russia, towards Russian culture, towards Russian people. There is some presence of the memories of Ukrainian Nazi soldiers during the Second World War here in Slovenia, being even more cruel and sadistic than the German ones. But today, here in Slovenia, Russians and Ukrainians who come here are generally well accepted, and they also have no problem with each other. War in Ukraine should make at least the intellectuals of Europe realize that for European nations to survive and thrive, European Union, this super-fascist entity, and NATO have to be abolished, and strategic, mutually beneficial cooperation with Russia re-established and enhanced.
Wow. That doesn't come as a surprise to me, Blush. Your description of the current situation in the European Union and where it's headed, you called it fascist. But I think that's going to be a surprise to perhaps a lot of people who watch my show on a regular basis. Is Slovenia, did I understand, is participating with the rest of the European Union and NATO in providing weapons and maybe money to Ukraine?
Yeah, we are all forced through our budgets and to the prices we pay for everything we buy, from petrol to food, to taxes, to anything, to rents. With everything, we, the people of Slovenia, part of 400 plus million people of European Union, are financing the war in Ukraine. And even worse, now, you know about the demand of Donald Trump to multiply the military budgets of European Union. And Ursula von der Leyen will do anything, everything and anything she can to to facilitate this slush fund, which only means that killings will be financed by the people, which is always the case. And for instance, Poland has already passed some legislation which will result in inscription of all the Polish people wherever they are around the world to come back to Poland and take the uniforms and go fight and die in a war against Russia. So yeah, it's terrible. And Slovenia, of course, as a disciplined member of European Union, cooperates with that. Although I must say, however critical I am of the politicians that are on top, they do not. There are some critical voices from them, from the president of Slovenia, from the prime minister. Not comprehensive enough, but partially critical towards some of the militarization being required from Slovenia. There were some attempts to organize a referendum, but it was cancelled. It was a referendum on the question regarding the financing of the military expenditures, increase in these expenditures.
How do the people feel? Are the people against this promoting the war in Ukraine, or are they just not paying attention? What's the temperature like among the people in Slovenia?
Generally, if you went through a town or street or in the shop or in the market and you ask people, they would generally say it's stupid, it cannot be, it has no sense. Why would that be? They simply can't believe. But this does not solve the problem. So people get easily manipulated. At the end they will say, "What can I do?"
Yeah,
and this
yeah,
is the
we hear that.
problem.
We hear that so often. What can I do? I'm just one person.
Yeah.
And they don't realize how powerful they are when you join together with others who will do their little part. Then you become powerful, and that's what the globalists, and you and I have talked about this before. The globalists who are behind all of this. This is what they want. They want people frightened. They want them fighting amongst each other, and they want them to basically just be silent and go along. Uh, I want to, you mentioned the war in Ukraine, and you mentioned that Europe had uh, to find a way to reestablish relations with Russia. I think that's what I heard you say. Um, and yet, um, the rhetoric has become increasingly bellicose, belligerent, violent. Uh, I don't know about all the countries in Western and Eastern Europe, but certainly beginning with the UK, with France, and with Germany, and Poland, and even the little, I call them chihuahuas in the Baltics, uh, telling their people we have to prepare for war. We have to get on a war footing. And I even read where in some cases they're telling the people to stock up on food, water, fuel, get generators, buy candles, dry food. Uh, I, I'm really concerned when I listen to all of this, and then I listen to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, uh, threatening and provoking Russia again after he thought he had a deal made in Alaska. He's flipped the script 180 degrees. He recently referred to Russia as a paper tiger, weak militarily and economically. Blush. when an ordinary objective person looks at this, what's the only conclusion you can draw?
Yes. Now, I have briefly mentioned, let me repeat again, there is a level of global power above the individual national states, above Donald Trump and his handlers, above global corporations, about global organizations like the World Bank, IMF, United Nations, UNESCO, above religious organizations, cults, organized crime. I call this level general global coordination. From this highest hidden level of coordination, wars, genocides, pandemics are used as tools. We are bombarded with corporate and alternative media narratives toward seeing war in Ukraine, for example, as a war between Russia and Ukraine, as if there was a quarrel between Ukrainians and Russians. This idiotic explanation is pushed repeatedly by Trump, for instance. Daddy tries to calm down two naughty boys, Putin and Zelensky, is more or less the narrative. And Trump got disappointed predominantly with Putin. And people are buying it. Not all of them, but many. I think we should understand the war in Ukraine, like genocide in Gaza, as projects of controlled demolition of human society. The suffering, deaths, collapsing standard of living of the people shows that the plan is working just fine. Depopulation, concentration of wealth and power in the hands of the general global coordination. So this is the way we should understand wars. And this is the real problem, a systemic one.
Yeah, I agree with you, but here's the $64,000 question.
Yeah.
Do you think that Vladimir Putin has figured this out? Do you think he, as the president of Russia, and the people behind him or around him, including the Orthodox Christian Church, do you think they recognize what you just said? Because from my perspective, living here in Russia, whether it's propaganda or whether it's just what people here generally believe about their country and their history, is that they don't attack anybody. They're defending the motherland. They're defending their traditional values, family values that are ancient, and people, they know what they are. It's not just verbiage and words. But do you think Russia understands this uh, attack on our basic humanity? One more thing. Putin has said repeatedly that Russia rejects the neoliberal Western values, period. Uh, you know, well, what do you think? Do you think Putin gets it?
Well, who am I to comment on Putin? I wish him all the best, and I wish Russia all the best. And definitely, there is a very competent team of intelligent people, including Putin and his inner and broader circle. So, and I welcome all the successes of development of Russia, and I hope it will go in a positive way. So, this is my general orientation. But on the skeptical side, I would still say that I'm waiting for Putin to say no to Agenda 2030. And the direct answer to your question would be, when Putin will say no to Agenda 2030, our main main goal of Russian long-term politics is the quality of life of Russian people, life meaning normal, natural life, because Agenda 2030 is predominantly a strategic plan to eliminate normal, natural life and to push in the digitalized cybernetics instead of natural life and spirituality. So no, they are not yet there. They are not touching this subject. Russia is fully implementing Agenda 2030, just like China. And this is the problem of this hopefully, let's call them alternative. And there is a lot of positive things to be said. Also, now the higher level of understanding between India, China, Russia is definitely a positive step forward, but things will get worse before they get better. And I'm still not optimistic regarding the strategic orientation of the Russian Federation.
Yeah. I think everybody, I have to rephrase that. I think Russia is going full speed ahead on the development of artificial intelligence. They're going full speed ahead on facial and digital identification. Uh, the they are our banking system has already created a digital ruble, but we still are primarily dependent on cash. Russian people, and the ones I know, say they will never give up cash. In fact, they have cash under the mattress in their bedroom. They have cash in a desk drawer. So the people are hedging against all of this, I think. For most part, people in Russia rejected all of that COVID stuff, isolation, masks, and getting the injection. So, I think if the Federation and those people who are really in power are moving towards this technocratic world, I don't think the Russian people are going to go along with it. That's my feeling. Um, and I think I'd like your thoughts on, you mentioned China, India, and Russia and the BRICS. How do you see what appears to be their operation to the United States um, thrust towards maintaining hegemony, dominance in the world? Do you see them as countering that? Because it sure looks like that to me. It looks like they're trying to get away from the dollar that's been weaponized, trading in their own currencies. Uh, Russia, China, India, just to name the three big ones, are not listening to Donald Trump. They're not paying any attention to the sanctions and the counter sanctions. They're continuing to trade with each other in oil, gas, everything else. So, how do you see that developing, Blush?
Well, I see this developing just as George Orwell projected that five superstates will be created in the world. No, there will not be one world government, but five superstates which will be in a permanent war for peace. So this clashes between United States and China and Russia and India are all on one level, and they are hurting people like you and me. But there is behind the coordination of the global elite where well, Russian and Chinese elite would like to be members of the club. And I fear they will do anything, necessary to become members of this exquisite club of global general coordination. They are nearly there, and they are obediently fulfilling the requirements of Agenda 2030. And now, how are the people accepting this? Because the problem with this agenda and with artificial intelligence and modern technologies is that in initial phase, there is a lot of convenience and positive things related to new technologies. And it's a problem for ordinary person to realize what is behind. And regarding how the people are reacting to these things, let me cite a Lutheran pastor who offered one of the explanations how the people are, why are the people silent, which you were asking me. Why are people in denial? Why are people fearful? He said, well, first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. So this is one of the, I think, relatively known explanations how people think and react. So people generally try to adapt, to comply, and survive. It is understandable. What is more discouraging, Regis, is the fact that we do not have even small groups of patriotic intellectuals within national states. But these small groups that would formulate comprehensive, multidisciplinary analysis of what is really going on, how to organize for defense and liberation. Unfortunately, we experience today also the abuse of Holocaust, as modern Holocaust is performed against Palestinians, Syrians, and others. And it's just a trial run how to handle depopulation and total digital control over all of humanity. So convenience and compliance comes to mind as two important factors. Systemic corruption is another factor, but not the corruption that is being disclosed by the corporate media and some individuals get prosecuted. This is just a farce. One of the centers of systemic corruption is Wall Street, and the mother of all modern dogmas, the dogma of money. Money is one of the most important social technologies, but also the most abused one. And here we come to the question that these are complex questions of political economy and political philosophy, which require certain level of knowledge and experience. And that's why I'm calling out the people of knowledge, the patriotic intellectuals, I call them, to come together to organize first on the level of national states and then form international cooperation. As it once was, I mean, these are not the new questions and not completely new answers. We have had in the movement of non-aligned countries in 50s, 60s, which was very strategically, very correctly targeted, but it was also systematically destroyed by corruption, assassinations, and all sorts of bamboozling, like big leaders, great names with good strategies like Nasser, Tito, Sukarno, and so on.
And they've all been eliminated.
Yeah.
You're going, as George Carlin famously said, and he was referring to the United States of America, it's a big club and you ain't in it. And
Yes.
when this is what we're talking about here now on a geopolitical, a global platform.
Yes.
Uh, and this is you and I have talked about this extensively in the past, and you just articulated again how it's extremely important for patriotic intellectuals, scientists, uh, politicians to come together and work together primarily or initially in their own countries to preserve their sovereignty, their dignity, and their self-respect. I think that when you talked about earlier that the wars that we're seeing, and not just the killing, but all of the cultural things, the civilizational things, uh, are really killing our basic humanity and our dignity as human beings. Um, Now, before we finish, I have to ask you this, Blush, because um, I want to know what you think, um, and maybe how you could also relate how the people in Slovenia think about Donald Trump. Um, you know, Anybody who's objective, and I try to be objective as you do, I look at Trump and I listen to his rants, his ramblings, his threats, his flip flopping, his lack of coherence, and I'm beginning to question his mental and cognitive ability. How do you, as a person in Slovenia, in Europe, see, think about, and talk about Donald Trump, the President of the United States?
Well, I'm rather isolated thinker here in Slovenia. I do have a number of well-informed colleagues. Uh, we share our views and we agree on main things, but we are a minority, and maybe we would already we were joking sarcastically that if we had some influence, we would have already been eliminated. So our protection is that nobody wants to listen to us. But I was very clear on Trump already years ago because Trump showed his cards performing the Warp Speed project, uh, which meant forcefully trying to vaccinate the population of the United States with army forces. He performed the biggest tax change, which favored the upper 10% and which collapsed the middle class. And so he showed his card. And I think he is ideal personality for the tasks he has been installed in this position to perform. He was groomed for decades. He was developed, solved, guided through these beauty pageants and casinos and this all sorts of things. He developed in a predatory figure profile, ideal for his position, just like Netanyahu or Zelensky or Merz or Ursula. They have all been decades in preparation, and they are ideal for the job. And I also, if you ask me about Trump, Trump has had a lot of support among Slovenian people. They like him, maybe also because his wife comes from Slovenia, Melania. What could she do for Slovenia? Of course, nobody asks. People are just people are drawn into emotions, and Melania is a nice looking, elegant woman, but she's just another of what I call, this science fiction film, The Stepford Wives. Uh, it's one of these beautiful robots performing their jobs. Um, so Trump has shown his cards, and I was really disappointed. Also recently here, also people who come to your show saying, "Yeah, we have had our hopes in Trump now for the second term, and we had our hopes in Tulsi Gabbard." And so you must be, I apologize, but you must be an idiot or ignorant to have any hopes in anybody who has passed these tests of the corrupt structures from the background to be put on most powerful spots, uh, at least the spots which are under the spotlights, because the powers and the decision making is anyway made in the background, in the rooms behind the ones we can see.
Yeah, and Trump's approval rating right now, I think, has dropped to about 38 or 40%. So you got 60% of the people in the country now have turned against them. And that means there's a lot of people who believed in him as a cult figure or even as a messianic figure. Uh, they moved away from
Yeah,
him. Uh,
yeah.
but I agree with you. They've all been groomed and prepared for a long time to carry out these roles. But
Let me
I want to,
maybe, yeah, okay, okay, yes,
no,
please
no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add this thing that discussing how Trump is doing this and how about his health and his mental health and he's weird and he's this and he's that. We forget, or people who comment this forget that we should discuss the system, which brings up Trump or Biden or anybody, because what is the alternative? American political system does not offer the possibility of bringing up to most important political positions people who would work for their citizens. This system does not allow that. So, so there is no alternative. And the system has to be changed or adapted in a way which very simply will eliminate money from politics, because politics today is just gambling. Is who comes up with more billions has a more chance of winning, and then he has to pay back his donors. So the system is self-destructing. So we should at least the intellectuals should not forget about analyzing the system and how to propose a new system of, I call it social governance, because the term politics is abused and has become a negative term. But yeah, we need politics, and politics have to be well organized. We don't have alternative, because if we say we will go somewhere else into some parallel universe, parallel system, what does it mean? It means that we leave all the powers in the hands of lunatics, and it's not acceptable. They will continue to do what they are doing, and we have no place to hide, nowhere in the world, because they are poisoning our air, our water, our food. They are destroying the resources, and they are coming up with destructional policies, uh, all all masqueraded under the fluffy titles of a circular economy and fight against poverty, nobody left behind, human rights, and so on. It's all nice, fluffy, but we have to change the system of accepting decisions, how we are accepting the budgets of our community, of our state, because this is going in a negative direction now. Ursula von der Leyen wants to create another even bigger slush fund than the ones she created for COVID. which was illegal, which was destructive. But now this military slush fund is even a greater threat to the quality of life of Europeans and of Russians, of course.
Yeah, I think more and more people, at least in the United States, that would be watching my programs and the friends that I have there, more and more people are beginning to understand it's the system and that electing another lesser evil has not changed anything for decades and decades. And you mentioned it's one thing to recognize the system is the fault, is the cause of this, but Blush, you and I have talked about this. It's another thing to come to some kind of agreement on a system, as you keep saying, in a politics and an economy that puts the citizens first. Your final words on this for tonight, Blush.
Well, maybe it's difficult, but it's written in most of the constitutions. It's nothing new. It's just we have to see why it is not working in this direction. And the first step in this direction would be defining what we want. Because if we do not define what we want in a relevant group, because if you and I discuss something, it goes nowhere. It goes maybe to a few hundred or a few thousand of followers, and it's okay. But it does not enter the decision-making area, and decision-making area will be entered by the patriotic national intellectual groups. So they have to organize themselves for defense and liberation. Without organization in this sense, nothing good will happen.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about this in the past. And, it's these grassroots organic movements like Occupy, for example, didn't really have any organization. Uh, they were just amorphous groups. They all pretty much had this, it's the 1%. We're against the 1%. We are the 99%. We have to take back power. But there was never any plan. Blush, can't thank you enough. So good to see you
Exactly.
again.
Thank you.
And I hope you won't mind, but we can't let so much time go by before we do another show. We may not be able to change things systemically, but I do believe that everybody has to do what they can. And you and I, as two individuals, are committed to trying to educate and inform anybody who will listen. Blush, thanks again. We'll see you real soon.
Thank you very much, Regis. All the best.